If your hills and mountains always end up looking flat and pasted onto your canvas, then I'm about to show you some things that you can do differently in your paintings right from the very first brushstroke. I'm going to paint these foreground trees in a way that instantly pushes the hills and mountains back into the distance right where they belong. I'm painting outdoors on plein air, but you can use this technique for any landscape painting. Alright, so I'm in the Crown Terrace here, so just sits above Queenstown. There's Queenstown in the distance, and the weather has been horrendous all day. It's been really cold, there's snow on the mountains, it's autumn here, and it's been raining all day, and the rain has just cleared, and I reckon I've got about an hour and a half to paint here, so I've got to paint super quickly, but I just love that view and the contrast and the light on the distant mountains, but also these Lombardy poplar trees. So I'm going to get into it. I've got my Pochard box easel all set up here, and the colours I'm using are titanium white, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow medium, cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cobalt teal and phthalo green, and I'm using Liquin Original. This is an Alla Prima Pochard box easel. If you want to get one, I'll put a link in the description box below. I'm using Blue Ridge oil paints. Again, if you want to get some of those, it's in the description box below. And I'm painting on an 8x10 linen panel. They're made by Source Tech. And again, if you want to get some of those, I've put a link in the description box below. So anyway, I'm going to get started, and I'm just going to quickly sketch out the composition with some burnt sienna mixed with Liquin. So I've got to paint super quick here. One thing I really like is these Lombardy poplar trees, so I want that as part of the composition. Now if you look over there, there's a line of trees, but I actually don't like that in the composition, so I'm going to change things around a little bit, and I'll make more the hill this way. I'm having to be super quick here. So if you see the Lombardy poplars are bunched together, I'm going to move this one over here. So there's the mountain in the distance. That's Cecil Peak, and the snow is being illuminated in the sun, so I'd like to be able to capture that. So the composition's sketched out here pretty much. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint our darks first. Then it doesn't matter that the light's going to change. So I'm just going to create a real dark mix of ultramarine blue, some burnt sienna, and some titanium white. And then we've got some alizarin crimson as well. And we'll get some super dark tones as well for the foreground. So first of all, I just want to get the darks in this Lombardy poplar tree. I can start marking in where some of these stems and branches are going to go. We've got another tree here, and I'll mark this one in. The darkest darks are going to be in the foreground. So the rule is, in landscape paintings, we'll find our darkest darks and our lightest lights in the foreground. And then as your landforms recede, darks aren't as dark, lights aren't as light. Really easy rule to remember, especially useful for when you're painting outdoors. A lot of the way you can gauge your paintings when you're painting outdoors is just remembering some of these rules. Darkest darks in the foreground as well as your lightest lights. Then as your landforms recede, your darks aren't as dark and your lights aren't as light. There's going to be some foliage. I'm really hoping it's not going to rain. Okay, so the next thing to do now is we're going to paint the landforms in the distance. And they're a lot lighter in value. So I'm going to use the same brush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm mixing in some titanium white here. So titanium white, and then we're going to blue it up with some ultramarine blue. And we're going to start painting some of these distant landforms. So let's try and get more blue in there so that the colour looks nice. We've got some alizarin crimson, so that's just going to give the scene a blue cast, or give the hills a blue cast. So the colour of the mountains can be quite deceptive, and they can look like there's all sorts of different colours in them, but most of them have a blue cast to them. So we can start marking that in. It definitely feels like it's going to rain in a minute, so I've got to paint quickly. This is the one thing with painting outdoors, is it teaches you to paint quickly. Now I may need to lighten that, but we can get some of these other trees and things in the midground. So let's talk about values again, to value how light or dark your subject is. And if anyone's ever read Carlson's book to landscape painting, or Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting by John Carlson, he said that he summarised the landscape into 4 main zones, broke it down into 4 main zones. And he said that the arch of the sky is some of the lightest values in the landscape, and then the ground planes are also pretty light. Then the slanting planes of the mountains are getting darker in value, and then the darkest darks are your upright planes, which are the trees. Alright, so getting the rest of my darks in, really hoping it's not going to rain. So painting these clouds here, cloud shadows. Right, so next I'm going to paint the tree shadows. They're also pretty dark, so I'm going to be using ultramarine blue with some yellow ochre, and we'll use a bit of burnt sienna as well for the Lombardy poplar trees. And I think I'm going to leave a gap for the highlights that I saw. It's very fleeting light, but I think I can memorise it enough that I can paint that in. Let's get this tree in as well. Right, so that's all my darks established, and so basically darkest darks here, and as we can see with the landforms here, it's getting lighter. So by painting the darks first, we create this tonal framework. It makes it much easier to paint the areas in light. So now we'll get in the main part of it. Now then, we're going to get some cloud highlights here, and I'm just going to use titanium white with a little bit of burnt sienna, just a little bit, and then that will mix nicely with the shadow mix. So first of all, we want to get some snow on there in the distance. I like that snow highlight. And then just get these colours in the clouds here. There's also some blue skies, so we can leave some gaps for that as well. In fact, I'm even going to get a bit of yellow ochre in there as well. There's definitely some yellow ochre tones in there. Right, so I'll start painting the highlights on the trees. I just want to get these colours down, so I'm going to use some yellow ochre, a bit of cadmium yellow medium, some ultramarine blue. These trees are mostly green, but they are starting to turn those autumn colours a little bit. So I'm just going to use these colours, and we'll get a bit of burnt sienna in there as well, and perhaps a bit of titanium white. So we'll start painting those on. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start painting the grass. I've just added some more titanium white. I'm working off the existing mix, so I'll add some cadmium yellow medium. Let's get a bit of phthalo green in there as well, just help green it up, and we'll get a bit of cadmium red. So red is opposite to green on the colour wheel, so when it's combined it just helps to balance out the green, make it look more natural, desaturate it a little bit. I reckon let's get some grass highlights along here. And I think we've got some trees in there, I decided, but we'll fade out the grass along here, and we can add some lighter layers, lighter tone to it towards the end of the painting. So I've got some trees in there. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to darken up this green for the grass that's in shadow. So I've just added ultramarine blue and some alizarin crimson, so it's just going to darken that. I'm going to add some cobalt teal as well, just to make it look more green. Make it look like this is in shadow over here. Get a bit of contrast. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video so far. If you'd like to learn more about painting landscapes, then check out my free landscape painting blueprint. Just click the link below and I'll send it over to you. Enjoy. Right, now to paint the midground here, and it's mostly in shadow. We've got all sorts of tones in there. Probably that's a bit dark actually, so I'm just going to lighten that. But I've used a mix of mainly yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson and titanium white. So we just want just a mixture of greens and things like that, but the very pale low chroma greens, and perhaps some yellow tones in there as well. Now then, what I'm doing here is I've just added more ultramarine blue, got a little bit of yellow ochre and some alizarin crimson, and I'm just going to mark in the suggestion of trees in the distance, make it look like there's all sorts of fields and trees and hills in the distance, but there's no real detail here. I want the contrast as well from these dark looking trees to what's in the distance here. I can add some lighter tones in this in a bit, but I'm just really trying to get just some colour down at the moment. There's actually a lake there which I'm going to add in a minute. I didn't see that when I started painting. So I'm going to add some yellow ochre. And we'll just start painting some of the hill there in the distance. So an important thing to remember when you're plein air painting, or indeed doing studio painting, this is just as applicable to the studio as well, but we want to get the colour harmony in there, and that's where the colours look harmonious and natural and it all works well. And the way we can do this is to use common colours throughout the painting. So I'm using a mixture of different colours here that just throughout the painting. So what I can do now, it's obviously looking quite dark, but I can add some lighter tones into it. Now then, I'm going to paint the lake in the distance. So I'm just going to get some ultramarine blue and a little bit of cobalt teal into my existing cloud mix. And I'll just paint that over there in the distance. We'll start getting the rest of the highlights in the distance as well. I've really got to hurry up here because it's going to be getting dark. I can see the sun is fast disappearing over there, so definitely got to get a move on. Now then, what I want to do next is paint the low chroma yellows that are in the distant mountain. So I'm going to use some yellow ochre and some titanium white, and I'll just use a little bit of alizarin crimson and a bit of ultramarine blue. I think I might have used too much ultramarine blue there, never mind. So if that's the case, add more alizarin crimson and we can add more titanium white. So we'll just see what that looks like. Distant mountain, yeah, that's not too bad actually. We could probably go a little bit lighter. So there's the light on the distant mountain. All right. Get some of the sky in there. I basically intend to blend all this together in a bit, but I just need a bit of sky. Okay, and I think I'll probably put some more cloud shadows in there. So anyway, we've got the canvas pretty much covered, so I'm going to start adding some detail to it and get these tones sorted out. The tonal values, they look a bit off at the moment. Right, so a lot of what I'm going to be doing now in the painting is just tidying up areas and like blending these clouds, for example, and just making them look like they're heavy clouds in the distance, shrouding some of these mountains. Could perhaps bring some cloud down there, and then then I can emphasize these highlights a bit later on, but I just want to have a stormy looking sky here. Right, the painting is coming along. I still consider it in the ugly phase at the moment, but what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start adding some detail, restating the darks, tidying up these mountains. So still quite a lot of work to do. So I'm using a synthetic brush here. In fact, actually, I'm just going to start with a clean mix here. So I'm ultramarine blue, bit of burnt sienna, bit of alizarin crimson, and I'm going to start getting some more of these darks in, so we can start with just the base around some of these trees here. I want a nice dark tone, so I just want some nice occlusion shadows in there. So next thing I'm going to do now is just tidy up these mountains. So I'm now going to add titanium white to that mix that I've just made up. Titanium white, then we'll get some more ultramarine blue and some alizarin crimson. So we're just going to tidy up these mountains. Actually, that's lighten it a bit, but I'm actually just going to get a bit more defined marks and edges in these mountains here. It's probably a little bit too dark there, so I'm going to add some more titanium white, leaving some gaps for some snow there as well. Okay, so the painting's coming along now, and what I want to do is tidy up these greens in the foreground. They're a little bit too dark, so I need to sort those out. I'm going to mix another green, I think, so we'll get some cadmium yellow medium. We'll use a little bit of yellow ochre, ultramarine blue. So this is my basic green mix, and then we're going to get some titanium white. Titanium white there, and we'll get some not alizarin crimson, sorry, some phthalo green, and we're going to use a bit of cadmium red light. I just want some, this has got to be a lot lighter in value. So I want to start painting some highlights on here. Right then, so my fingers are absolutely freezing, so I just want to get this finished now. So what I'm doing here is I'm painting some highlights on these poplar trees here, and then I'm going to restate the dark values. Just going to get some of the half tones in the tree foliage as well. So what I'm doing here is just restating the dark values in the poplar tree. It's just also going to help to bulk them out a little bit. Just get some more shadow in them. Oh man, I can hardly feel my fingers, so this is actually making painting very difficult, because I didn't think to bring any gloves with me, which is a pretty silly thing to do. Now then, let's just get some more highlight in the side of these trees. So what I've done is I've just loaded the end of the brush with paint, and I'm just using the edge of it just to paint some of these highlights here. As you can see over there in the distance, the sun is fast fading, so I've got to get this finished. So I'm just going to be painting as quickly as I can. I just want the suggestion of some of this grass here. So just getting some snow highlight on this mountain here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint the snow that's in shadow, in the shadow side of the mountain. So we'll just brush that on like that. Certainly going to add a bit more depth to it. Now I'm just painting some of these leaves here that are shimmering in the full sunlight, and I'm just using a mix of cadmium yellow medium and some titanium white, so just to get some of that shimmering effect. Definitely think one of the things these trees need is some sky holes. Just one of the last things I want to do is just get a little bit more highlight in the grass here. There we go. I would say that's this painting finished, and just in time because the sun is setting over there. There we go.